The Zephyrian warfleet descended upon Earth's outer colonies like a storm of metal and plasma. Admiral Kexthan watched the tactical display with satisfied clicking sounds emanating from his mandibles. 12 worlds had fallen to their superior military might in the past rotation cycle, and this primitive blue planet would be no different. Status report on the human defensive capabilities, he commanded, his forearms working the command console with practiced efficiency. Primitive kinetic weapons, Admiral, responded Lieutenant Veltar, her tentacles dancing across the sensor array. Chemical propulsion projectiles. No energy shields detected on their vessels. Their largest ships barely qualify as frigates by our standards. The Admiral's compound eyes gleamed with predatory satisfaction. The Zephyrian Dominion had conquered 17 star systems using their advanced plasma weaponry and molecular disruptors. These humans appeared to rely on crude ballistic weapons that couldn't possibly penetrate their adaptive armor systems. Estimated resistance duration? Kexthan inquired, already planning the resource extraction protocols. 6 solar hours maximum, possibly less if they surrender after witnessing our initial bombardment demonstration. The warfleet consisted of 87 vessels, each one a technological marvel capable of glassing entire continents. Their warriors wore exoskeletons that enhanced their natural strength tenfold, and their weapons could disintegrate targets at the molecular level. The humans, according to their intelligence networks, had never encountered technology beyond their own solar system. As they approached Earth's defensive perimeter, the first human ships emerged from behind the moon. Kexthan laughed, a sound like grinding metal plates. Look at those pathetic vessels. They're constructed from refined metals and primitive composites. Our scanners indicate they're using combustion engines for maneuvering. The human fleet numbered only 32 ships, and each one appeared antiquated compared to Zephyrian technology. No energy signatures indicating advanced weaponry, no defensive fields or quantum armor, just crude metal hulls and what appeared to be projectile-based armaments. Open communication channels. Let's offer them the opportunity to surrender before we demonstrate our superiority, the Admiral commanded, settling back in his command throne. The main viewer flickered to life, revealing the face of a human male with graying hair and steely blue eyes. He wore a simple uniform bearing symbols the Zephyrians didn't recognize. This is Admiral Marcus Chen of the Earth Defense Force. You are in violation of Terran space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Kexthan's laughter echoed through the bridge. Consequences? Human, we have conquered civilizations that existed before your species discovered fire. Your primitive weapons cannot even penetrate our basic hull plating. We offer you one opportunity. Complete surrender and your deaths will be swift. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. Counteroffer. You have 30 seconds to begin your retreat, or we'll show you why Earth's military academies spend 4 years teaching marksmanship. Marksmanship? Lieutenant Veltar whispered. Admiral, their translation protocols are functioning correctly, but that term doesn't correlate with any known advanced warfare technique. The human admiral continued speaking. You see, in our history we've learned that technology doesn't always triumph over skill. Our ancestors brought down massive creatures with nothing but pointed sticks and perfect timing. We've been perfecting the art of hitting distant targets for over 10,000 years. Kexthan's patience evaporated. End transmission. Begin the demonstration bombardment. Target their flagship with minimum power. Let them witness the futility of resistance. 3 Zephyrian destroyers moved forward, their plasma cannons charging with an ominous blue glow. The energy buildup was visible across all spectrums, designed to intimidate as much as destroy. But something unexpected happened. The human ships began moving in patterns that defied tactical logic. Instead of forming defensive formations or attempting to flee, they spread out in seemingly random directions. Their weapons, primitive-looking cannons mounted on rotating turrets, began tracking the Zephyrian vessels with mechanical precision. What are they doing? Veltar asked, her tentacles twitching with confusion. Their positioning makes no strategic sense. They're exposing their weak points and eliminating any possibility of mutual defensive support. Then the humans opened fire. The first salvo wasn't directed at the Zephyrian ships themselves. Instead, the projectiles followed trajectories that seemed to serve no purpose. Some appeared to miss entirely, sailing past their intended targets by significant margins. As expected, Kexthan said dismissively, their targeting systems are as primitive as their propulsion. Fire the demonstration shot. The lead Zephyrian destroyer released a concentrated plasma burst toward the human flagship. The energy beam crossed the distance in milliseconds, but something impossible happened. A human projectile, fired 3 seconds earlier, intercepted the plasma burst at the exact moment and location where it would have caused maximum damage to the energy stream. The plasma dissipated harmlessly into space. Probability calculation error, Veltar announced, her voice uncertain. Random chance of interception, approximately 1 in 47 million. More human projectiles began finding their marks, but not in the way the Zephyrians expected. Instead of targeting the heavily armored main hulls, the projectiles struck with surgical precision at sensor arrays, weapon mounting points, and maneuvering thrusters. Each shot demonstrated an understanding of Zephyrian ship design that should have been impossible for a species encountering their technology. For the first time, how are they targeting our specific system vulnerabilities? Kexthan demanded. The answer came from an unexpected source. One of the human projectiles struck the lead destroyer's main communications array, but instead of exploding, it deployed a small transmitter. Admiral Chen's voice filled the Zephyrian bridge. You wanted to know about marksmanship? Every human soldier spends hundreds of hours learning to compensate for wind, gravity, target movement, and projectile drop. Our snipers can hit targets they can't even see, using mathematics, intuition, and pure skill. You brought superior technology, but you forgot something important. Another perfectly placed shot disabled the destroyer's primary weapon system. We've been practicing warfare for millennia before we ever left our planet. Every human child learns to throw objects with accuracy before they can walk properly. Our greatest military legends aren't remembered for their technology, but for their impossible shots under impossible circumstances. A third projectile somehow ricocheted off the destroyer's hull at precisely the correct angle to strike a second ship's reactor, cooling system. And unlike your energy weapons that travel in straight lines, our projectiles can be fired along ballistic trajectories. We calculated your positions not based on where you are, but where you would be. Every shot we fired was aimed at your future location. Kexthan stared at the tactical display in growing horror. The human fleet was systematically dismantling his advanced warships using what amounted to sophisticated rocks, thrown with impossible precision. This wasn't warfare as the Zephyrians understood it. This was something far more dangerous, the application of pure accumulated skill against superior technology. The Zephyrian fleet began to understand the true nature of their predicament, as more human projectiles found their marks with disturbing precision. Admiral Kexthan watched 3 of his destroyers drift helplessly in space, their critical systems surgically disabled by what his sensors still registered as primitive kinetic weapons. Admiral, we're receiving technical analysis from the engineering corps, Lieutenant Veltar reported, her tentacles trembling with what appeared to be confusion or fear. The human projectiles aren't simply striking random targets. They're demonstrating comprehensive knowledge of our engineering specifications. The main display showed detailed damage assessments. Every human hit had targeted specific subsystems that maximized operational disruption while minimizing structural damage to the ships themselves. Power coupling junctions, sensor array focal points, weapon tracking mechanisms, and maneuvering thruster control linkages. Each target required intimate knowledge of Zephyrian technology. Impossible, Kexthan stated flatly. These humans have never encountered our civilization. Our intelligence networks confirmed their isolation within their single star system. Another salvo of human projectiles arced through space, following ballistic trajectories that seemed to curve around the Zephyrian defensive positions. 3 more ships found their primary weapons offline, struck at precisely the points where power conduits connected to firing mechanisms. Admiral Chen's voice continued to broadcast across all channels. You're wondering how we know where to aim? The answer is simple. We've been watching you for the past 6 months. The revelation struck the Zephyrian bridge like a physical blow. 6 months was the exact duration of their reconnaissance phase, during which their stealth observation posts had monitored human military capabilities while remaining undetected. Every time you thought you were invisible, our amateur astronomers were tracking your ships. Every time you believed your communications were secure, our signals intelligence teams were analyzing your transmissions. We've been studying your technology, your tactics, and your weaknesses since the moment you entered our solar system. Captain Sarah Martinez adjusted her targeting display aboard the human cruiser Determination. The modified naval railgun under her command could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. But the real innovation wasn't in the propulsion system. Her ammunition was smart, equipped with micro-guidance systems that allowed for terminal trajectory adjustments. Target acquired, she announced to her gunner, Sergeant Jack Thompson, Zephyrian battlecruiser designated Tango 7, targeting their primary reactor's cooling intake manifold. Thompson had spent 15 years as a Marine Corps sniper before transitioning to naval gunnery. His experience tracking targets, through variable atmospheric conditions and calculating for wind drift, translated remarkably well to three-dimensional space. Combat, range 47,000 kilometers in closing, target aspect angle changing at 12 degrees per minute, compensating for gravitational influence from Earth's moon and the target's own acceleration pattern. The mathematics involved were staggering. Unlike energy weapons that traveled in straight lines at the speed of light, ballistic projectiles followed parabolic trajectories influenced by gravitational fields, target movement, and the rotation of celestial bodies. Human military computers had spent decades developing algorithms to solve these equations, but the final targeting solution still required human intuition and experience. Shot fired, Thompson reported. The projectile would take 43 seconds to reach its target. During that time, the Zephyrian ship would travel nearly 8,000 kilometers from its current position. The human gunners had to predict not just where the enemy ship would be, but also how it would react to incoming threats, what evasive maneuvers it might attempt, and whether other factors might influence its trajectory. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander David Park operated from the human destroyer Persistence, coordinating what appeared to be impossible multi-ship targeting solutions. His background in competitive skeet shooting had taught him to track multiple moving targets simultaneously and calculate interception points for objects following complex flight paths, designating priority targets for coordinated salvo, he announced across the tactical network. All ships prepare for synchronized release. We're going to thread the needle on their formation. The human battle plan relied on a concept foreign to Zephyrian military doctrine: patience. While the alien ships attempted to close distance for direct energy weapon engagement, the human fleet maintained optimal ballistic firing positions. They weren't trying to destroy the Zephyrian ships quickly. Instead, they were systematically degrading enemy capabilities while remaining outside the effective range of plasma weapons. Dr. Ellen Foster monitored the engagement from Earth's primary military command center, analyzing the success of humanity's unconventional defensive strategy. As a former professor of military history, she had advocated for preserving traditional marksmanship skills even as warfare became increasingly technological. Admiral Chen, "We're observing 93% accuracy on primary target systems," she reported. "Enemy fleet is showing signs of tactical confusion. They're attempting energy weapon targeting solutions that assume linear trajectory attacks. The Zephyrians couldn't comprehend ballistic warfare because their own technological development had bypassed that evolutionary stage. Their weapons were sophisticated energy projectors that hit targets instantaneously across normal combat ranges. They had never needed to develop the mathematical and intuitive skills required for trajectory prediction. Human military development had followed a different path. Thousands of years of throwing spears, shooting arrows, and firing increasingly sophisticated projectile weapons had ingrained certain capabilities into human military thinking. The concept of leading a target, calculating for external influences, and predicting future positions were fundamental skills that every human soldier learned. Aboard the Zephyrian flagship, tactical analysis computers struggled to develop countermeasures against an attack methodology they had never encountered. The artificial intelligence systems that governed their fleet coordination were designed to respond to energy weapon exchanges, not to ballistic projectiles that followed predictable but complex mathematical trajectories. "Admiral," Veltar announced, "our defensive algorithms cannot establish effective counter-targeting solutions. The human projectiles follow parabolic trajectories that our point defense systems were never designed to intercept." Kexton felt the first stirrings of genuine concern. His military training had prepared him for technological superiority, overwhelming firepower, and tactical brilliance. He had never conceived of facing opponents who, compensated for technological disadvantage through pure skill and mathematical precision. The human fleet continued their methodical destruction of Zephyrian combat effectiveness, each shot a demonstration of accumulated military wisdom that spanned millennia. They weren't just fighting a space battle. They were applying every lesson learned from human warfare throughout history. And the Zephyrians, for all their technological advancement, had no answer for an enemy that could hit targets they couldn't even see. The battle reached a turning point when the human fleet demonstrated their most devastating capability: coordinated indirect fire. Admiral Kexthan watched in growing horror as human projectiles began arriving from directions that defied all tactical logic. "Status report on the indirect strikes," he commanded, his forearms working frantically at the tactical display. Lieutenant Veltar's voice carried a tremor of disbelief. "Admiral, the humans are using gravitational bodies as targeting aids. They're firing projectiles that follow orbital mechanics around asteroids and moons to strike us from unexpected vectors." The Zephyrian understanding of space combat revolved around direct, line-of-sight engagements. Their plasma weapons required clear targeting solutions, and their tactical doctrine assumed that threats would approach from predictable directions. The concept of using celestial mechanics to curve projectiles around obstacles had never occurred to their military strategists. Commander Lisa Rodriguez aboard the human heavy cruiser, Defiance coordinated the most complex targeting solution of her career. Her background as a NASA trajectory specialist had prepared her for precisely this type of challenge, calculating multi-body gravitational interactions to achieve desired ballistic outcomes. "Firing solution locked for slingshot maneuver around Luna," she announced to her crew. "Projectile will achieve gravitational assist, increasing velocity by 12% and approaching the target from their presumed safe zone." The mathematics required supercomputer assistance, but the fundamental concept was ancient. Human artillery specialists had been using indirect fire for centuries, lobbing projectiles over hills and buildings to strike targets that couldn't be seen directly. The principle scaled remarkably well to three-dimensional space combat. Sergeant Major Robert Chen, Admiral Chen's brother and the fleet's premier ballistic specialist, coordinated what the humans called a gravity well bombardment from the cruiser Vengeance. His 40 years of military experience included everything from mortar operations to intercontinental ballistic missile targeting. Multiple projectiles in flight, using Luna's gravity well for trajectory modification, he reported. Estimated time to target 4 minutes 37 seconds. Enemy ships are positioned in what they believe is a shadow zone. The Zephyrian fleet had arranged itself behind a cluster of asteroids, using the rocky bodies as shields against direct human fire. Their tactical computers indicated perfect protection from kinetic attacks, since no straight-line trajectory could reach their position. They had failed to account for human creativity. The first, gravity-assisted projectile struck the Zephyrian battlecruiser Divine Retribution, exactly where their defensive models indicated impossible. The kinetic round, accelerated by lunar gravity, punched through their rear armor and disabled their primary reactor containment system. "Impossible targeting geometry," the ship's artificial intelligence announced in its mechanical voice. "Projectile approach vector indicates origin point behind intervening celestial body." Captain Zeknal, commanding the Divine Retribution, experienced something that few Zephyrian warriors ever felt: genuine fear. His species had achieved spaceflight by developing energy weapons that made ballistic warfare obsolete. They had no tactical doctrine for opponents who could shoot around corners. The human assault intensified as more ships demonstrated their unconventional targeting capabilities. Projectiles bounced off asteroid surfaces at calculated angles, used gravitational slingshots to achieve impossible velocities, and even employed multiple celestial body interactions to approach targets from directions that violated Zephyrian understanding of spatial geometry. Dr. Amanda Foster, working alongside her mother Ellen Foster at Earth's Command Center, provided real-time ballistic calculations for the most complex targeting solutions. Her doctoral thesis had focused on chaotic gravitational systems, making her uniquely qualified to predict projectile behavior in multi-body gravitational environments. "Confirming trajectory solution for Operation Ricochet," she announced. "Human projectiles can achieve target acquisition using calculated deflection off asteroid 387 Delta. Impact probability, 87%. The Zephyrians watched in disbelief as human projectiles struck asteroid surfaces at precise angles, ricocheting toward their ships with maintained velocity and accuracy. The kinetic rounds retained enough energy after deflection to penetrate alien armor systems, targeting critical components with surgical precision. Admiral Kexthan realized that his fleet faced opponents who had transformed space itself into a weapon. Every celestial body, every gravitational field, every piece of orbital debris became part of the human targeting system. The aliens had superior technology, but the humans had superior understanding of physics applied to warfare. The human destroyer Persistence achieved the most spectacular demonstration of indirect fire capability when Commander Park successfully executed a double-bounce targeting solution. His projectile struck two separate asteroid surfaces, changing direction twice before impacting the Zephyrian heavy cruiser Cosmic Dominance. Target neutralized, Park reported with satisfaction. Primary weapons offline, maneuvering capability reduced to 15%. The ricochet shots are working exactly as modeled. Zephyrian fleet's artificial intelligence systems began generating error reports as they attempted to calculate counter-strategies for warfare that violated their programmed assumptions. Energy weapons could not replicate the ballistic trajectories that allowed humans to attack from unexpected directions. Lieutenant Veltar's tentacles danced frantically across her control surfaces as she attempted to coordinate defensive responses. Admiral, our tactical algorithms cannot generate effective countermeasures. The humans are using mathematical principles that our combat programming does not recognize. What principles? Kexthan demanded. Gravitational trajectory calculation, multi-body orbital mechanics, and kinetic deflection geometry. Our weapons are designed for direct energy projection. We have no capability to match their indirect targeting methods. The human fleet continued their methodical dismantling of Zephyrian combat effectiveness, each shot demonstrating mastery of principles that the aliens had never needed to learn. While the Zephyrians possessed superior technology, the humans possessed superior understanding of how to use their environment as part of their weapon system. The battle had become a demonstration of human adaptability versus alien technological superiority. The humans were fighting with tools and techniques developed over millennia of warfare, applying ancient principles to futuristic combat. Every shot was a testament to humanity's ability to find creative solutions to seemingly impossible challenges. And the Zephyrians, despite their advanced civilization, had no answer for opponents who could turn the battlefield itself into their ally. The Zephyrian fleet's predicament worsened dramatically when the humans revealed their most devastating tactical innovation: predictive bombardment. Admiral Kexthan watched his tactical display with growing desperation as human projectiles began striking his ships before they even reached their intended positions. Tactical analysis update, Lieutenant Veltar announced, her voice carrying undisguised panic. The humans are firing at coordinates where our ships will be, not where they currently are. They're predicting our movement patterns with impossible accuracy. The revelation struck at the core of Zephyrian military doctrine. Their fleet coordination relied on predictable formation movements and standardized tactical responses. What they considered disciplined military precision, the humans had identified as exploitable patterns. Colonel James Mitchell commanded the human battleship Constitution, the flagship's primary strategic weapons platform. His background included 30 years of military service, with specialization in long-range artillery and missile defense systems. Most importantly, he had spent a decade studying alien military communications intercepted during their reconnaissance phase. Pattern analysis confirms Zephyrian tactical doctrine follows rigid algorithmic protocols, he announced to Admiral Chen. Their formation changes are mathematically predictable based on threat assessment algorithms. We can calculate their future positions with 94% accuracy. The humans had done something the Zephyrians never expected. They had studied their enemies' tactical patterns and developed countermeasures based on behavioral prediction rather than technological superiority. Every Zephyrian formation change followed protocols designed for maximum efficiency against conventional opponents. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the human cruiser Liberty, executed the most successful predictive strike of the engagement. Her targeting team had analyzed Zephyrian evasive maneuvers and identified a mathematical pattern that repeated every 43 seconds during combat stress situations. "Predictive targeting solution locked," she announced. "Enemy battlecruiser will execute standard evasive pattern delta in 37 seconds. Projectile flight time, 39 seconds. Firing now." The human projectile left the Liberty's railgun at precisely the moment required to intercept the Zephyrian ship at the exact coordinates where it would be after completing its predictable evasive maneuver. The aliens, following their tactical programming, moved directly into the path of a projectile fired before they had begun moving. Aboard the Zephyrian heavy cruiser Storm of Conquest, Captain Yelthara experienced the impossible reality of being struck by weapons fired at positions her ship hadn't yet occupied. The kinetic round punched through their primary deflector array at precisely the moment her vessel completed its evasive maneuver. "Navigation control, explain the targeting impossibility," she commanded her artificial intelligence system. "Unable to calculate enemy targeting methodology," the AI responded. "Human projectiles are intercepting our position changes with temporal precision that suggests precognitive capability. The Zephyrians' reliance on artificial intelligence and algorithmic tactical responses had created a vulnerability they never recognized. Their military efficiency came from standardized procedures that optimize performance against known threats. When facing humans who had studied those patterns, their predictability became their greatest weakness." Dr. Michael Kumar, the human, fleet's chief tactical analyst, coordinated the predictive bombardment from Earth's command center. His expertise in game theory and strategic psychology had proven invaluable in decoding alien tactical thinking. Zephyrian military doctrine prioritizes formation integrity and standardized response protocols, he explained to Admiral Chen. They have optimized their tactics for fighting opponents with similar technological capabilities. They never developed countermeasures against enemies who could predict their behavior patterns. The human approach to warfare had always emphasized adaptability and creative problem-solving. Human military history was filled with examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through tactical innovation and superior understanding of enemy weaknesses. The principles that allowed ancient human armies to defeat superior opponents applied perfectly to space combat. Commander Sarah Davidson aboard the destroyer Intrepid achieved the most spectacular demonstration of predictive targeting when she successfully coordinated a 6-ship bombardment that struck multiple Zephyrian vessels simultaneously. Each target was hit at precisely the moment they completed pre-programmed tactical maneuvers. "Multiple targets neutralized," she reported. "Enemy fleet coordination is breaking down. Their artificial intelligence systems appear unable to adapt to non-algorithmic tactical approaches. The Zephyrian fleet's greatest strength had become their critical weakness. Their advanced technology provided computational power that enabled perfect tactical coordination, but it also created rigid behavioral patterns that intelligent opponents could exploit." Admiral Kexathan faced a military disaster that his training had never prepared him to handle. His fleet possessed superior firepower, advanced defensive systems, and overwhelming technological advantages. Yet they were being systematically destroyed by opponents who fought with mathematics, pattern recognition, and accumulated military wisdom. "Order all ships to implement random evasive protocols," he commanded desperately. "Admiral," Veltar responded, "random movement patterns will reduce our formation effectiveness by 73% and eliminate our capability for coordinated tactical responses." "Do it," Kexathan ordered. "Predictable formations are allowing the humans to destroy us ship by ship." The Zephyrian fleet began executing chaotic movement patterns that violated their military doctrine. Ships scattered in random directions, abandoning the formation integrity that had been the foundation of their tactical superiority for centuries. But the humans adapted immediately. "Enemy formation disrupted," reported Colonel Mitchell. "Switching to opportunity targeting. Individual ships are now isolated and vulnerable to concentrated fire." The human fleet adjusted their tactics with the flexibility that had always characterized human military thinking. When faced with unexpected situations, human commanders relied on training, experience, and creative problem-solving rather than rigid protocols. The scattered Zephyrian ships found themselves facing coordinated human attacks without the mutual support their formation discipline had provided. Individual vessels, isolated and following unpredictable movement patterns, became easy targets for human gunners who had spent lifetimes learning to track erratically moving objects. The battle had become a demonstration of human military evolution versus alien technological stagnation. The humans were fighting with principles developed through thousands of years of warfare, while the Zephyrians were constrained by tactical thinking designed for technological superiority rather than strategic adaptability. The Zephyrian fleet situation deteriorated beyond Admiral Kexthan's worst tactical nightmares when the humans demonstrated their final devastating capability. Adaptive targeting systems that learned and evolved during combat. What had begun as a routine planetary conquest had transformed into a masterclass in human military innovation. Status report on our remaining operational vessels, Kexthan demanded, his forearms trembling with frustration and growing fear. Lieutenant Veltar's tentacles moved sluggishly across her controls as she compiled the devastating assessment. Admiral, we have lost 47 ships to critical systems failure. 23 vessels retain partial combat capability. Only 17 ships maintain full operational status. From an initial force of 87 advanced warships, the Zephyrian fleet had been reduced to functional ineffectiveness by human projectile weapons that their technology had dismissed as primitive. The psychological impact was perhaps more devastating than the physical damage. Captain Jennifer Walsh commanded the human heavy cruiser Redemption, which had become the proving ground for humanity's most advanced targeting, innovation, machine learning algorithms that analyzed alien movement patterns in real time and adjusted firing solutions. Accordingly, adaptive targeting system is showing remarkable learning curves, she reported to Admiral Chen. Our artificial intelligence has analyzed 1,700 individual Zephyrian ship movements and can now predict evasive maneuvers with 97% accuracy. The human approach to military technology differed fundamentally from Zephyrian methodology. While the aliens had developed advanced weapons that remained static in their capabilities, humans had created systems that became more effective through experience and adaptation. Master Chief Patricia Flores, the fleet's senior gunnery specialist, coordinated the adaptive targeting from the battleship Enterprise. Her background included service in every major human conflict of the past 2 decades, giving her unparalleled experience in tracking and engaging moving targets under combat conditions. Enemy evasive patterns are becoming increasingly desperate, she observed. Their random movement protocols are actually making them easier targets because they're abandoning the formation support that provided their primary defensive capability. The isolated Zephyrian ships found themselves facing human gunners whose accuracy improved with every shot fired. Each missed projectile provided data that refined the targeting algorithms, while successful hits confirmed the effectiveness of calculated solutions. Dr. Alan Petrov, the human fleet's chief weapons systems engineer, monitored the adaptive learning process from his station aboard the command vessel. His innovations in neural network targeting had transformed human ballistic weapons into learning systems that became deadlier with experience. The machine learning protocols are exceeding all performance projections, he announced. Our targeting accuracy has improved by 43% since the engagement began. The system is identifying Zephyrian behavioral patterns that human observers never detected. The concept of weapon systems that became more dangerous during combat was foreign to Zephyrian military thinking. Their technology followed predictable performance parameters that remained constant throughout engagements. The idea of adaptive systems that evolved in real time violated their understanding of how military equipment should function. Aboard the Zephyrian battlecruiser, Infinite Glory, Captain Mordeth watched his ship's defensive systems fail against human projectiles that seemed to anticipate every evasive maneuver. His vessel's artificial intelligence provided tactical recommendations that proved increasingly useless against opponents whose capabilities improved continuously. Tactical analysis request explain human targeting improvement during sustained combat, he commanded. His ship's computer, unable to provide explanatory framework, the AI responded. Human weapons performance is increasing beyond baseline parameters established at engagement initiation. This behavior contradicts known technological principles. The Zephyrian understanding of warfare assumed that military capabilities remained constant throughout individual battles. Units fought with predetermined strengths and weaknesses that defined tactical possibilities. The concept of combat systems that became more effective through experience challenged their fundamental assumptions about military science. Lieutenant Commander David Park, aboard the destroyer Persistence, achieved the engagement's most remarkable targeting solution when his adaptive systems successfully predicted and intercepted a Zephyrian projectile using calculated ballistic interception, confirmed kinetic on kinetic interception, he reported with barely contained excitement. Our adaptive targeting system predicted the enemy projectile's trajectory and fired an intercepting round that destroyed their weapon mid-flight. The demonstration shocked both fleets. The humans had achieved something that violated Zephyrian understanding of possible warfare. They had shot down an enemy projectile using their own projectile weapons. The mathematical precision required was staggering, but the adaptive learning systems had made it possible. Admiral Chen observed the battle's progression with satisfaction that was tempered by respect for his opponent's courage. Despite facing impossible odds and incomprehensible tactics, the Zephyrian fleet continued, fighting with determination that earned his professional admiration. Open communication channels to the Zephyrian flagship, he ordered. Admiral Kexthan's image appeared on the human command display, his compound eyes reflecting defeat but not surrender. His species had conquered 12 worlds through technological superiority, but they had never encountered opponents who compensated for technological disadvantage through pure military innovation. Human Admiral, we acknowledge your tactical superiority, Kexthan stated with formal dignity. Our intelligence networks failed to recognize your species' military capabilities. We underestimated not your technology, but your adaptability and skill. Admiral Chen nodded with respectful acknowledgement. Your fleet fought with honor, Admiral, but you made a critical mistake. You assumed that advanced technology automatically provides military superiority. You forgot that warfare is ultimately about solving problems, and humans have spent thousands of years learning to solve problems that others consider impossible. The human fleet continued their systematic destruction of Zephyrian combat capability, but their approach had evolved beyond simple victory. They were demonstrating human military philosophy, that successful warfare required creativity, adaptability, and the ability to find unexpected solutions to seemingly insurmountable challenges. The Zephyrians had brought superior technology to a battle that would be decided by superior thinking. And in that contest, humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their equipment, but their ability to learn, adapt, and overcome obstacles through pure ingenuity and accumulated wisdom. The final phase of the battle demonstrated the ultimate expression of human military philosophy, victory achieved through wisdom rather than destruction. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display as the last functional Zephyrian vessels drifted helplessly in space, their weapon systems disabled but their crews unharmed. Status report on enemy casualties. Admiral Chen requested from his tactical officer. Commander Rodriguez consulted her damage assessment displays with satisfaction. Minimal personnel losses, sir. Our targeting doctrine focused on disabling ship systems rather than destroying vessels outright. Estimated Zephyrian casualties, less than 3% of their total personnel. The human approach to warfare had evolved beyond simple destruction. While they possessed the capability to annihilate the Zephyrian fleet completely, they had chosen to demonstrate their superiority through precision and restraint, rather than overwhelming firepower. Admiral Kexthan stared at his own tactical displays in stunned amazement. His fleet had been rendered completely ineffective, yet most of his ships remained structurally intact. The humans had systematically disabled every weapon, sensor, and propulsion system while avoiding damage to life support and crew quarters. Lieutenant Veltar, analysis of human targeting priorities throughout the engagement, he commanded, his voice carrying a mixture of defeat and grudging respect. Admiral, the humans deliberately avoided strikes that would cause significant personnel casualties. Their targeting focused exclusively on military systems while preserving crew safety. This approach is unprecedented in our military experience. The concept of warfare designed to minimize enemy casualties while achieving complete military victory challenged every Assumption the Zephyrians held about combat philosophy. In their experience, military engagement was about demonstrating superior technology through overwhelming destruction. The humans had demonstrated superior skill through surgical precision. Dr. Ellen Foster observed the battle's conclusion from Earth's command center with professional satisfaction. Her advocacy for preserving traditional military skills had been vindicated in the most dramatic way possible. The combination of human creativity and accumulated military wisdom had triumphed over technological superiority. Preliminary analysis confirms the success of our strategic doctrine, she announced to Admiral Chen. Human military capabilities, properly applied, can overcome technological disadvantage through superior training, adaptability, and tactical innovation. The engagement would be studied in military academies throughout human space for generations to come. It represented the perfect demonstration of humanity's greatest military strength. The ability to find creative solutions to impossible problems using nothing but intelligence, skill, and determination. Captain Maria Santos, aboard the cruiser Liberty, coordinated the final demonstration of human precision when her crew successfully disabled the last functional Zephyrian weapon system using a ricochet shot that bounced off 3 separate asteroid surfaces before striking its target. All enemy combat capability neutralized, she reported. Zephyrian fleet is completely disarmed but structurally intact. No enemy vessels require immediate rescue operations. Admiral Chen opened communication channels to address both fleets simultaneously. The moment required acknowledgement of what had transpired and establishment of principles for future relations between the species. Admiral Kexathon, your fleet fought with courage and determination. However, you underestimated humanity's most fundamental characteristic, our refusal to accept defeat when defending our home. We don't fight with the most advanced technology. We fight with the accumulated wisdom of every human who ever faced impossible odds and found a way to win. The Zephyrian admiral's response carried dignity despite his devastating defeat. Human Admiral, we acknowledge that technological superiority does not guarantee military success. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that our intelligence networks failed to identify. We have learned valuable lessons about the importance of adaptability and creative tactical thinking. Admiral Chen continued his address to both fleets. This engagement demonstrates that successful warfare requires more than advanced equipment. It requires understanding, creativity, and the wisdom that comes from thousands of years of military evolution. Today's battle was won not by our technology, but by the accumulated knowledge of every human soldier who ever learned to hit a target under difficult conditions. The human fleet began coordinating rescue and assistance operations for the disabled Zephyrian vessels. Despite having achieved complete military victory, the humans immediately offered humanitarian aid to their defeated opponents. The gesture demonstrated another aspect of human military philosophy: strength combined with compassion. Master Chief Patricia Flores coordinated the assistance operations with the same precision she had applied to targeting enemy ships. Rescue shuttles deploying to provide emergency supplies and medical assistance to Zephyrian vessels. All human ships are prepared to assist with evacuation operations if required. The Zephyrians found themselves receiving aid from the same opponents who had just systematically dismantled their fleet. The human approach to post-combat operations was as unprecedented as their battlefield tactics had been. Admiral Kexthon realized that his species had encountered something remarkable: opponents who combined devastating military effectiveness with genuine concern for their enemy's welfare. The humans had proven they could destroy the Zephyrian fleet completely, but they chose restraint and offered assistance instead. Admiral Chen, your species has demonstrated military capabilities that exceed our expectations, but your post-combat behavior suggests principles that our strategic doctrine never considered. Why do you offer assistance to defeated enemies? Admiral Chen's response reflected humanity's complex relationship with warfare. Admiral, we fight when we must, but we prefer to build understanding when we can. Today's enemy might become tomorrow's ally if both sides learn from their experiences. We've learned that the greatest victories come not from destroying opponents, but from earning their respect. The battle concluded with an unprecedented outcome: complete military victory achieved through superior skill rather than superior technology. followed by immediate humanitarian assistance offered to the defeated force. The engagement would reshape both species' understanding of warfare and diplomacy. The humans had proven that technological advancement alone could not guarantee military success. More importantly, they had demonstrated that true strength came from the combination of military capability, tactical innovation, and the wisdom to use power responsibly. The Zephyrian fleet would return to their space with a new understanding of human capabilities and a profound respect for their military philosophy. The humans had achieved their primary objective, defending Earth while establishing the foundation for future peaceful relations through a demonstration of strength tempered by mercy. The galaxy would learn that Earth's defenders possessed something more dangerous than advanced technology, the accumulated wisdom of a species that had spent millennia learning to triumph over impossible odds through creativity, skill, and the refusal to accept defeat.